Peace and love, freedom and decolonization, revolutionary greetings to all the African people. This is our second episode on our lecture about the steps that we as African people must go through to make our liberation effective so that we can be able to take charge of our nations and of our lives for the rest of the 21st century. If you haven't seen the first episode, the introduction, please kindly go through and see how we have introduced the purpose of this presentation and the reason why it is very important to go through those steps as a people after what we call independence so that we can take charge of our lives. And by listening to that introduction, you will also realize the reason why we are in the conditions in which we are today as African people. Because for every civilization to be destroyed, there must be negative forces inside as well as negative forces from outside to combine in order to destroy that civilization. And what we are today, the state in which we are today is balanced by the negative force within ourselves and the negative force from the outside to keep us in the conditions in which we are today. So for us to be able to take charge of our lives, there are steps that we must go through as African people by our own initiative in order to be totally free. As I said from the beginning, you can take a slave out of slavery, but it's only a slave who can take slavery out of himself. And you will understand as we are progressing towards towards all the steps that are required. Most of steps, not all, there are more, but some important steps in our judgments that are important that we should go through as African people to liberate ourselves. Now, number one is rebellion. You see, rebellion, passive or violent, no matter how you put it, is necessary for any process of social change. Don't get me wrong. When you want to change something, it means you are rebelling against the law that maintain the thing that you want to change. Let me put it in this way. If you want to get rid of poverty, if you want to make yourself a wealthy person, you must first and foremost rebel yourself against the poverty that is dominating your life. I don't know if you understand, because anything has certain laws or principles that make it functioning. Whether you talk about poverty, whether you talk about colonialism, whether you talk about slavery, neo-colonialism, imperialism, they are laws. They are principles, they are conditions that make those things or those reality possible in our lives. So you cannot change your reality until you begin by rebelling yourself against it. Until you begin by refusing that reality. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying when I'm talking about rebellion. So in our context, as we were colonized, we must understand that colonialism was first of all about humiliation of African people. We were humiliated. We were reduced to the level of animals, of nothing, of a beast. We were subjected to the authority of the white man through his agenda of white supremacy. We cannot then suddenly expect everything to be totally right after we had been declared independence. No. The first thing that we need to undertake ourselves is to rebel against the law of inferiority that keeps us subject to the white supremacy. Even our forefathers who were struggling against colonialism to get what we call independence today, they had to rebel against the constitution, against the law, against the policy of colonialism, which kept Africans subject to the Europeans need, so that Africans can be used in those plantations to cultivate, to produce the wealth that Europeans enjoyed and are enjoying today at the expense of Africans themselves and their children. So Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, Sankara, all these people had to rebel against that law that maintained the status quo of that time. And even today, I mean, that was maybe physical, but what we need to do today is more of psychological, because we are still going through that very same dynamics, that very same inertia, psychological inertia, where when we look in the world, we give ourselves an inferior space as African people because we don't believe that we deserve better. So we need, first of all, to rebel against that law, that's the current status quo. But that has to happen in our mind, because as we have explained in one of our preceding lectures, we said that slavery or enslavement of Africans have happened in three phases. The first phase was of physical destruction of African people, where we know Africans were physically taken from Africa to be made slaves, to be physically forced into working for the Western society, producing for Western society, right? And after that phase came a phase of now economic exploitation, which led European countries to divide Africa into small pieces and come into Africa, invade Africa, and exploit the resources of Africa by using Africans themselves to build Europe. And the last phase then is what we call today neo-colonialism. This is more of the mind, after they have transformed an African man and African woman into a machine of auto-destruction, of self-destruction. Europeans can go back now to Europe, and Africans will by themselves function in that mode of self-exploitation, self-destruction, where we are today willingly participating in the projects of our own destruction. So this is more of psychological. So we cannot change our reality. We cannot get the true freedom until we begin by rebelling ourselves against the inferiority that has been imposed upon us by the white supremacy. We must rebel ourselves against the exploitation of us, of ourselves, and of our resources, by the Western imperialism or Western institutions. We must rebel against the status quo of today so that we can build something better for ourselves tomorrow, because it looks like we have made ourselves comfortable being slaves, being colonized. Look in the social media, look on TikTok, look on Instagram, look on Facebook. Look, the most dominant activity that Africans are doing. Then you will tell me whether we have accepted the conditions of our reality today, or we are totally unaware of what is the global politics, where is the world heading to, and what is the situation of African people. You see, because what we see every time I'm going there, mostly for African people, what you see on those social media is dancing, is prank games, is all these stupid things that show that we are not aware of the dangerous situation in which we are living today. We are not really aware, conscient about our reality in the world. So that shows that we have already accepted it subconsciously, or we have made peace. We have gotten comfortable with the condition imposed upon us. So we cannot expect a better Africa until we change the mindset of millions of Africans, or if not billions, to realize that our situation is not acceptable and to get angry at the current status quo, because you cannot change something until you get frustrated by that thing. Any revolutionary process is triggered by frustration of the masses. When people get frustrated about the conditions of life, about maybe the price of goods, about the lack of freedom, about lack of human rights, or stuff like that, it leads people to getting more and more frustrated, and eventually it will trigger revolution. But if we have a situation where the majority of African people are happy with getting pictures with the filters, the pictures that show happiness, the pictures that show satisfaction, because they've put some filters on those pictures, because they've taken those pictures in front of nice buildings, nice water, stuff like that, right? Especially today, when we want to look nice, we must look naked. We must be naked for our African queens. This is a terrible situation. It shows that we have made ourselves comfortable with the reality, while resources of Africa are being plundered on daily basis to be stocked in Western countries. And when our land remains empty, with the walls everywhere, when you go to Congo, you find the holes. Because all the resources have been taken out, and we don't have leverage anymore. Because what makes Africa today is not because we are doing anything important apart from dancing and gambling on TikTok and Instagram. What makes Africa, important today is the resources that Africa has. And when all these resources are taken out of Africa, we don't have any leverage. We'll be killed. Nobody will care about us, whether we have pandemic, whether we have not, because we don't have anything that the world needs anymore. So that's the moment when we get to that point, that the moment that most of Africans will realize that, we have been going through a very dangerous situation, when our backs are against the wall. Look at Africa today. What kind of food are we eating? Even though we have the third of the arable land in the world. They said more than 60% of arable land is in Africa. We eating plastic food that give us a lot of diseases that we didn't know before, cancers and stuff like that Africa didn't know we are going through today because of the food that we're eating, simply because we don't want to produce what we consume and consume what we produce as African people. And we can do that despite all the international law that keep us in the condition where we are today, despite WTO's policies that prevent Africa from developing its own food. But we can do that. But the first thing is, we need to rebel ourselves against that same policy of the WTO. We need to rebel ourselves against the current status quo, in order to do for ourselves what other people have been pretending to do for us. So, young Africans, you who are potential leaders of tomorrow, please let us not get comfortable with our reality today, because this reality is not good at all. The camera I'm using now to film the video, it was not made by me. The software is not controlled by me. Everything that we do, most of things that we do are not controlled by us. The food that we eat, look in our communities, the supermarkets are owned by aliens. Those are the ones who feed us. How can we be so satisfied? How can we be so comfortable having the bankers who are supposed to invest in us, not people who are looking like us? The foods that we eat, not produced by people who are looking like us. The schools, the better schools that we want to go and send our children, not really managed or controlled by people who are looking like us. And finally, the supermarkets, where we are supposed to get what we need every day to buy the food and to sell our goods, to do our transactions that build the economy. Those supermarkets are not controlled by us. How can we get so much comfortable with this reality? It is time that we rebel ourselves against this status quo. So if, in a nutshell, if you haven't found an organization through which you can participate, because this rebellion is not just a matter of going on streets and protest. Remember, our motto is, this revolution is not on the streets. This revolution is in the mind. So it requires organization. You see, the same way those people have organized themselves to keep us down, we also need to organize ourselves to build ourselves up. That's where the rebellion begins. It's about organization. There's not a better way to say it than how Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, I should say, said it. If we organize a little, we get little things done. We go and organize sometimes, we get things done sometimes. We organize always. We always get things done. So for this rebellion to be effective, we need to organize ourselves. We need to be part of organizations that have projects that are aiming to transform Africa and to rebuild Africa. So should you look for one, or should you not have one organization, please join us in the African Continental Unity Party. We have beautiful projects. We have a very powerful agenda that is aiming, as I said, from the introductory parts, it's aiming at rebuilding Africa as a global power base. So you will see the description, the link to our website in the description. If you click there, you get to know more about the ACUP, or the African Continental Unity Party. And we want to work with you because this is the masses movement. This is not an elite kind of thing. This is our movement as the masses, is our voice as the masses of Africa. We have relied for a long time on the opinions, on the voices of the elites, because we didn't know that though that elites was formed, created, and trained by the Western to manage Africa on their behalf. And we have been lied to for a long time. We go to elections, we elect, we don't get anything out of that. We get frustrated and we choose other candidates that is presented to us by the international propaganda machine. We elect them, we go through the same cycle. So today it is time that our voice as the masses should be now heard, and this will be done through the project of Pan-Africanism organization. That's why we're calling up on you, all of you African people. If you are a professor, you are, engineer, you are a scientist, we need all these skills because we have a great agenda. Please join us. If you are a businessman, please join us. Let us together fight for the true liberation, as we are talking about, and the reconstruction of Africa as a global power base. Let us rebel against the status quo that keep our township, that keeps our villages, that keeps our communities impoverished, while the wealth of those communities is being taken out of our communities every single day. So, number one thing that we need to go through, we must rebel against the law that keeps you poor. We must rebel against it. You must refuse to be poor. You must get frustrated by the fact that you are poor while you are living in the rich land. And once you get frustrated of that, then you are able to begin asking questions of how you can change your reality. And that's how the universe will put in us, will put in you an inspiration of what you can do to change your conditions. But you will never gonna get that inspiration if you are so satisfied with the condition in which you are living. So, young Africans, let us refuse this humiliation. Let us refuse this inferiority. Let us refuse white supremacy to dominate us. Let us rebel against white supremacy. Let us rebel against imperialism. Let us rebel against neocolonialism. Let us rebel against the poverty, hunger, diseases that has been genetically coded to attack us. Let us refuse against everything that keep Africa impoverished or in the condition where we are. Let us refuse or rebel against unemployment. And when we get to that state of mind, then we'll be able to see clear what we need to do to change our reality, than spending all the time on TikTok dancing and pranking, doing all the funny and stupid things that we do in most cases. Peace and love, freedom and decolonization. If you have two shoes, please sell one and buy a sword. If you have two trousers, please sell one and buy a sword, because now it is time for revolution. And this revolution is no longer on streets. This revolution is in the mind. Peace and love, freedom and decolonization. Please, let's proceed to the next phase towards our liberation, which is in the next episode. Thank you. See you there.